Welcome to my journey through the Bible. This will be applications you can apply to your life and a little more in depth about the chapter. So we are in Judges 8, verses 1 through 35. And it is easy for us to feel like we have been left out. We are not good enough. We have been overlooked. And I think we all like to be a part of something and we want to belong. We want to feel like we are doing something important. But we need to remember that we are a part of God. We are God's children and we come from a long line of royalty. And we have worth in God. So do not doubt your worth in the eyes of God. Now, you may work for men that run a big company and you feel like you're the little man in their company working on a line or cleaning up their messes. Sometimes people can think that women that stay home aren't worth much. Maybe as a mom that is staying home, you feel like all you do is clean up messes all day, and you sometimes begin to feel overwhelmed and frustrated and think the things that I'm doing doesn't really matter, but they do. The women that stay home and take care of their children, you have a very important job. You are teaching them about God. You are loving them. You are showing them how to love and how to love other people. And then those women that are trying to juggle both a job and taking care of their children and their home, they have those same responsibilities. Not only do they get to teach their children, but maybe they can be a positive influence at their job and their work as well. And you don't have to be rich or own a big company or even be a big shot in the company in order for God to use you. God can use us as long as we have a willing heart. And pride is one of those things that can make us feel like we deserve more credit, or we deserve more pay, or we deserve more status. And we have to be very careful with that, because pride can lead us astray. It can put a wedge in between us and God. And we must learn to be content in our jobs that God has put before us. We need to do the best that we can, be content with where we are at, and in time, God will give us a better job. God will help us move up in status of that job and give us more responsibility. But remember, with more responsibility also comes more accountability, because we have to account for everything that is under our control or our leadership. And then we also see that these two leaders of these maybe tribes, small nations, would not help Gideon and his men when they were hungry and needed something to drink. They refused to help him. And Gideon said that he would be back to destroy them. I think a lot of times we can do that too. We can ask somebody for help, and when they tell us no, we immediately get mad and say, well, you're going to get yours. You wait till you need my help. I'm not going to give it to you. And sadly, that is the kind of attitude we have, but that is not a godly attitude. Now, I do not really know what these two leaders were thinking when they would not help Gideon. But hypothetically, let's say that they were scared that Gideon would not kill these kings, and that these kings were mighty and large in number, and they would regroup and they would come back and attack them. So maybe they were looking out for themselves and for their people in the decisions that they made. Of course, on the other hand, maybe they were just refusing because they didn't want to help. They didn't want to be bothered. They didn't want to be a part of that. And we have to realize that fear and concern for ourselves many times will cause us not to recognize the presence of God. And sometimes it keeps us from being a part of God's plan to victory. Now, God's work will prevail with or without us, so we need to be quick to step in and help and be a part of something, especially when we know it is God-led. We need to be willing to be engaged with other people, give them support and time and money and our talents, and pray for those that God is using. And of course, we see that once Gideon had victory, Israel wanted Gideon to be their king. They saw somebody that could protect them and maybe support them. And Gideon refused because he said, I'm not going to be your king, nor will my sons. The Lord will be your king. Gideon had pointed them back to God, which is what we need to do. We need to always point people to God. We may have understanding. We may be able to explain things. We may be able to help people out of certain situations because God has allowed us to do that. So be sure that we give the credit to God for the victories in all of our lives. And we also see that Gideon made this symbol. I feel like Gideon probably made this symbol out of these gold earrings to remember that God gave them victory, to remember that God conquered this great nation, and Gideon and his men had a trumpet in one hand and a lamp in the other hand, which means they wasn't going into battle to really fight. They knew God was going with them to fight. And I think Gideon wanted them to remember that. But somewhere along the way, Israel and them began to worship this emblem. And Gideon had lost sight of God because he did not correct the situation. He let it continue to go on this path of destruction. So we have to make sure that we put God first in all of our life, not just in and for our church, but in every area of our life. And we need to be sure that when we have good motives, that they do not produce negative outcomes. Be sure to think about the negative consequences of the decisions that you are making before you go through with them. Also, always be on guard Always be on guard and be ready for the next attack, because many times Satan will attack you right after a victory when he thinks your guard is down, and when you think you are on top of that mountain and nobody can touch you. That's when Satan is going to hit you. May God be with you in everything and in every way.